Hey guys, what it do? It's your boy Supremacy here, the God. Now, I know there's a lot of Mihawk is a fraud talk. Mihawk is this, Mihawk is that. Shanks is the God, da 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 da. So I want to talk about it. Let's talk about Mihawk being a fraud or not being a fraud. Realistically, I think it's essentially impossible for Mihawk to be a fraud. Because if Mihawk is a fraud, guess what? Zoro's dream is fraudulent. And we know how strong Zoro is, right? There's Luffy and then there's Zoro. And if you want to say Zoro's Yonko level, YC1 level, I mean, he defeats YC1 levels, and a Yonko defeats YC1 level, so I don't know why he isn't a Yonko. If he's the strongest YC1 level and he's also a supernova. But that's up to you. That's up to you to decide, right? So Zoro has to become the world's strongest swordsman, right? Or the god of the sword, like Ryoma, right? Um, And then there's a guy called Mihawk who is already the world's strongest swordsman. In fact, him and Roger are the only two characters in the whole series. Even Joy Boy failed to accomplish his dream and goals. Joy Boy, the Joy Boy that Luffy is, Nika, all of that, failed. Only, to be honest, technically Roger even failed, right? Because he got there too early in order to actually utilize the One Piece. He got there too early. The One Piece is real. He just couldn't steal it. Shanks wants to steal the One Piece. He knows that Luffy is Nika and the only person that can actually get the One Piece. And thus, he's been waiting for Luffy to make it so that and I think that's one of the reasons he probably even jumped in Marineford to save him, is because he realized that this mother right here is the key to the One Piece. And by keeping him alive and ensuring that he reaches Laugh Tale, he can come and yank that thing off of Luffy, because it will only activate on probably when Gear 5 happens, right? It's the same thing if you look at the ancient robots. So if we look at that, right, and we say all of these characters that we've met in the whole story have failed. All of these guys never achieved their dream goal. You can say Whitebeard achieved his dream goal because his dream goal was to have a family, and he had a massive family, and he did whatever, right? Cool. But we're talking about, the goals we're talking about, right? And guess who did though? Mihawk achieved his goal. Mihawk became the world's strongest swordsman. And then he stopped caring about the notoriety of it and all of that shit. And he took up the opportunity to be, right? What are the sea again? What are they called? Warlord of the sea. And now people power scale that and say, oh, that means his strength caps at yada yada yada. But that is just not true, right? It's explained in the story that he doesn't like being chased by the Marines anymore. And unlike everybody else who has a crew, and therefore Marines are more careful about sending people after them because they might lose, key members like vice admirals, whatever. He's by himself, so he'd be 1v1ing whatever. And they sent Marines after him, and well, he took care of them, no problem. But why would you just send your Marines against somebody with a whole fucking army in hand, right? Like Luffy's fleet, the Straw Hats is massive now, right? He has several captains of ships, right? And those guys are captains of the ships. Several of them, right? He has a fleet. So if you start a war with Luffy, you start a war with Luffy's fleet. Like the government is doing right now, because they don't really have a choice. With Mihawk, if you start a war with him, you start a war with him and him alone. You send 10 fleets on a motherfucker. He might win, but you can escape. It's one motherfucker, bro. You can get away. You know what I'm saying? You can get your strong man out of there. And I think that right there is an important aspect, right? That a lot of people don't consider when they complain about him. He's bounty 3 point something billion, despite him never having a crew, never really causing havoc. He was a Marine hunter, but he wasn't a Marine killer or whatever, but he was a Marine hunter, right? We don't know why he hunted Marine for a while, but he did for a little bit. And that was a long time ago. He did that before he became the world's strongest swordsman. So at some point he stopped and decided to become the world's strongest swordsman. Maybe he got his revenge already, right? Maybe he did what he had to do. Maybe he hunted Marines until he got a specific thing. It could be the sword that he has. Maybe that's what he hunted for. We have no idea. But it seems like he always had that big ass sword. Um, but that's the thing. If he's a fraud, like it would just be bad writing, to be honest, because it's been foreshadowed for so long in the story that this duel, this battle between Mihawk and Zoro will shake mountains, right? Zoro will be the world's strongest swordsman, bro. And people talk about haki and haki this and haki that. Zoro learned haki from Mihawk. Like, what? And Zoro has strong ass haki, bro. He has conquerors. In fact, he has advanced conquerors haki. There's only a very, very select few of characters with that shit. And he fought a clone of Mihawk without the haki, not as strong. And he looked at that clone and he was like, "You more human than Mihawk is." He did not fight that clone and think, "Damn, you's just as formidable as Mihawk." He was like, "Pfft, yeah, yeah, you ain't nothing. Mihawk, pfft, Mihawk would do it. No, Mihawk would take you out the equation with one slash." Blackbeard had a little running with that Seraphine, with the S Hawk Seraphine too, and he was struggling. You know what I'm saying? Now Blackbeard do be struggling against everybody low key at the start, and then he pulls up a dub off screen. You know what I'm saying? He the king of off screen, as we know, boy. He gets a power boost, ultra, extra mode every time the camera pans away. It pans back, the opponent is cooked. Like you're like, what? What happened? Like, what did he do? Nobody knows, but he did it. That's all that matters. Now, if you think about Mihawk for real, like if he's a fraud and he's not as strong as people say he is, then what is the point for him to be there in the story, in the arc? Now we know he's not as important to the narrative as Shanks. Okay? Shanks is gonna be the most important, I think, character in the series alongside Blackbeard, right? Because Shanks wants to steal. Now, if you look at the translations, the translation when Shanks says about getting the One Piece, his translation for it was he will steal it by force once it is like it basically meaning this is a Japanese person explained it, but basically he'll take it by force, but he's not trying to like go there first. He knows Luffy has to get it first, so he's trying to allow Luffy to get there, and he's gonna snatch it off him by fire, by force. And he's slimy. We know that much slimy, bro. You know what I'm saying? We seen him talk with the Gorosei, chilling with the Gorosei, and walking away, right? So obviously he got some dealings with them, right? But we know Mihawk and the Gorosei and them don't seem to really, you know what I'm saying? I think one of the reasons they probably offered them the role of, or imagine this, you was a hunting of Marines and they still offered you the role of warlord of the sea, right? And then when he pulled up in Marineford, my dude did not give no damns, bro. He was barely trying, bro. No hockey, like, and he said, like, you know, the swordsman, you cut what you decide to cut, and you don't cut what you don't want to cut. He has full and absolute control over his sword. He can decide to try to cut paper and not, and fail. He can swing his sword at me and fail to cut me because he decides not to cut me. He decides his sword will not do it because he has ultimate mastery and control over his swordsmanship, right? So a lot of that stuff is taken out of context. Also, Marineford is like horrible for power scaling if you're a power scaler, right? But just narratively, fuck power scaling. Narratively speaking, it just does not make sense for Mihawk to be a fraud. Um, and I'm not even going to argue about Mihawk versus Shanks in this video. Uh, I I just I don't really see why there's an argument or the argument between Mihawk and Kaido. I've made a video on it and explained my reasoning behind my opinion. Um, but yeah, I just think narratively speaking, it does not make any sense for Mihawk to be a fraud. But you know, that's just my thoughts though. I think he has a connection with Emu. I think he's going to be the last major fight for Zoro. I think while Luffy maybe is fighting Shanks or fighting Blackbeard, whoever you think he's going to fight last, before he reaches the One Piece, I think Zoro will be holding off Mihawk, and that will be the final duel. I think they will be fighting at Laugh Tale. I think that Laugh Tale is when all these major fights will occur. I think it'll be one big battle royale. And then when Luffy defeats Blackbeard and takes the One Piece, Shanks will blindside him and take it and bring it to the Gorosei. Crazy theory? Wait for my next video. It's been your boy Supreme J the God. I'm out.